If you've seen this video by Yoneyama Mai, then you might be wondering the same thing as I did, which was how did the image go from like this to this? So to figure that out, I will be following along with this time-lapse step by step. I'll be going through my attempts at doing the rough and line art, the coloring, and the finishing touches. But if you want to see what she did here, then you can just skip to this timestamp. To start off, I decided to draw a rough just like the time-lapse video. To me, what makes this illustration so appealing was this unique dynamic angle, and perhaps also the use of big, medium, and small shapes, which helps with guiding the eye of the viewers. And I'm almost done with the rough, so to check the proportions, I'm gonna paste the image back on top to see how far I was off by. I'm not great at character anatomy, but I think I did alright. Shit. So with the rough done, the next step is to draw the line art on top. I tried my best at mimicking her style by making sure that some edges and shadowy areas have thicker lines. In the comments of the video, this commenter mentioned that Yoneyama used default pencil brush in Clip Studio Paint. But since I'm using Photoshop, the closest brush that I had was this one. If you know a good pencil-y brush for Photoshop, please let me know of your suggestions in the comments below. And now that the line art is done, for coloring, I started by filling in the base color as usual. Since I want to practice my color picking skills, I will be guessing her colors all throughout the study, only eye-dropping to check how far I was off by from time to time. Here I use a soft brush / airbrush to color the tip of the hair and shadows on the face, hand, and tree. At this point, white was used to color in the strong light coming from the left side. I think using pure white made the image very bold and dynamic lighting is always a big part of Yoneyama's style. Also, notice how her line art wasn't black. It's actually this dark purple, which I think is quite cool. The colors that she used here are complementary colors, and later on she introduced a light source that has a bluish hue, which further complements the warmer colors. I'm actually surprised at how often soft brush was used in this illustration. This workflow was quite different to the typical anime cel shading that I'm used to. I think this is the first illustration that I've seen where we can actually see the inside of the eyelid. Definitely not something you see often, but I guess that's what makes this illustration so unique and refreshing. Yoneyama often used curves to adjust the colors on the go. For me, I often use hue saturation or levels instead of curves to adjust the colors, but that's because I'm used to them and I think curves is quite complicated and confusing. But just for this study, I decided to follow in Yoneyama's footsteps and practice using curves. And wow, this study made me realize that the curve tool is way more powerful and versatile than I thought. Let's say you want to adjust only the darker brown of this image and not affect the brighter parts. With curves, you can do just that. You can then adjust the saturation, the hue, and the levels. It's practically a combination of hue saturation and level adjustments. So this is definitely a technique that I will be using more often moving forward. And here I added more details to the tree, adjusted the shadows, and added branches to the top. I like how the color of the tree was just a simple gradient. Very minimal, yet very effective. It was here where Yoneyama changed the lighting drastically. The direction of the key light changed from coming from the lower left to coming from the top right. The lighting in the lower left instead becomes the secondary light / bounce light. I'm not sure why Yoneyama decided to change the light source or whether it was planned from the beginning. My guess would be maybe the image was too dark, like perhaps there wasn't enough contrast in the hair, which made it look too flat. But I do know that this lighting was what made this image really pop. Right here was where the image suddenly turned pink and pastel-y all of a sudden. This is actually very simple to do. The way she did this was through adjusting the blue using the curve tool. And here's how you do it. First, add a curves adjustment layer. Change the selection to blue, and move the curve up a bit to increase the blue levels. Although we couldn't clearly see her doing this in the video, this blue curve technique was used in pretty much all of her other time-lapse videos. To replicate camera depth of field, Yoneyama would blur objects that are not in focus, such as objects in the background and foreground. I think in this video she used a smudge brush to do the blurring, But for me, I decided to use a combination of box blur and iris blur. I've used these because I've seen Yoneyama using them in her other time-lapse video. And then it's back to adding more details, such as shadows on the trees. Now that I'm happy with how the colors turned out, it's time to blur the rest of the image. Everything was heavily blurred except for the area of the face around the eyes. So how exactly did Yoneyama achieve the final pastel pink look? What did she do exactly? If we zoom into this pixelated text here, we can see that there are 3 adjustment layers, 2 curves, and what I think is a hue saturation adjustment layer. But we couldn't clearly see how she utilized them in this video. So instead, I think the easier method would be to follow what she did here in her other video, which was to use 1 curve adjustment and 1 pink layer in soft light blend mode. And here's how it works. The curve tool was used to adjust the blues of the image. Then a layer of pink color was added and changed to soft light blend mode. Adjust the opacity as required, and that's it. Lastly, Yoneyama added a noise layer on top of everything. This was done by creating a gray layer, going to filter, and add noise. Then setting the layer to soft light, and finally use Gaussian blur to soften the grains a little. Again, we couldn't see this process in this particular video, but I've directly replicated this process from her other videos. White flowers in the foregrounds and tears flowing from the eyes were added, I think to strengthen the narrative behind the image. And here's the final outcome. The link to the Photoshop files will be in the description in case you want to check out the layers.